Shut up and sit down.
Hey! The carburetor battery's flat! We gotta go back!
Old boy, rode it my whole life.
You are listening to the Dialed Podcast with the not-so-aerodynamic Matt Lee Grand, Evan Price, Lance Hepler, and Jake Von Turing. Enjoy.
Riding down hillsides.
Watts, bonk, slam, snap, off, tempo, chamois, carback, endo, cadence, hammer, fondo, arrow, threshold, breakaway, century, peloton, and VO2 max.
On my bicycle, singing my song. On my bicycle ride.
Choose your arch enemy from the following list: mountain biker, triathlete, clueless cyclist, motorist, pothole, or gluten.
On our bicycle ride, everyone's riding alone sometimes, but it's better to have a companion ride. Everyone's Saturday night goes wrong sometimes. I love the ride.
Own the road. Motorists will be more than happy to share the road with an environmentally conscious and active citizen like yourself.
Hey, get a car.
Hi, and welcome back to the Dial Podcast. I'm Jake Von Turing. I'm here with Evan Price.
Oh, man, I'm going first.
I know, because you had a bunch of food in your mouth, so I figured I'm going to pick on you.
I'm never prepared to go first here.
You're never prepared.
Well,
period.
we are all. So we got Matt drinking unlabeled, for sure, vodka. He's having a rough week. So
Oh, rough week. Better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like a seltzer water
like
machine.
cough syrup.
Yeah.
Is what this is.
What flavor
Clear.
is
It's vodka flavored.
Vodka flavor. Don't you just not put flavoring in yours?
Yeah. No flavoring in this.
That's so. Do you know how I know that you're the most boring person here? Is that you didn't put flavoring in your at-home seltzer bottle?
Yes, that's many reasons that I have.
Number
for
7
being,
of the reasons today.
So many reasons why I'm the most boring person that you know.
Meanwhile, I'm drinking a super exciting new Ghost energy drink flavor, Straw Bango Margarita.
Straw Bango.
Yeah, this is because I'm cool and I
are.
know the kids.
You're way
I know the
cooler.
kids. The
You're way
kids would
cooler than
understand
I am.
this because he's a YouTuber. The guy
You're
that this is based
Oh,
on.
really? Let me see.
Ghost Energy.
He probably has, more subscribers than I have.
I don't know. Your latest video actually gets more views than his usually do. So
You on that payroll yet?
no.
No?
I'm not. I'm not. Unfortunately, I really need to be here soon.
Come on, Ghost.
I just don't think they're looking to sponsor a triathlete. I don't think that's number one on their
It's
list.
got to be high up there. on
Should
the
ask.
list.
I think they sponsor
Formula
like
One
video
driver,
gamers. Yeah, it's
video
like,
gamers,
I think it's like
and
power
triathletes.
lifters, like YouTubers,
Oh, yeah.
video gamers, and one triathlete.
It's interesting that you know that much about Ghost sponsorship.
We had our old roommate used to watch that channel all the time, so I was like, cool, I'll watch his channel. And I was like, wow, these energy drinks are delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you those channels are harsh and like hard to watch.
Oh, I mean, I get very bored watching them, but
Yeah.
still, yeah.
Huh.
All right.
Lance is
Jake is
texting us
Lance
right
is
now.
texting us what he's drinking.
Speaking of introducing the cast,
He's probably drinking some like creek water in the middle of nowhere, Utah. But
it's probably caffeinated.
We'll get to Lance in just a moment.
500 milligrams.
Just a moment here. Evan Price is right. Matt LeGrand.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen of the internet? You guys are looking all right. You're looking all right.
That's
doing
good.
okay. Talk to him.
You met with my brother
I did.
some point.
Brother.
Oh, we're
very
calling
much
him in?
with you, brother.
Let's try this. Let's see how this goes.
Hello?
Oh.
He won't answer. He's not going to answer.
Hello. Yes.
Hey, Lance Hepler. This is Jake from the Dial Podcast. You are live on the air. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. I'm at the end of, I guess I'm at the end of the loop of the Thunder Mountain Trail in near Bryce National Park on my mountain bike. I just did the fun thing, Thunder Mountain.
Isn't Thunder Mountain the water park in Disneyland?
I don't
No,
hey.
it's a roller coaster. In
Oh,
Disneyland.
thank you. Yeah, there we go. It's close.
Are you allowed to say this on the interwebs? Lance, you're a
Ice cream sandwich.
No, you are not allowed to say.
Oh.
I mean, yes,
Sorry. Somebody
you
have to
want.
edit that out.
I can't wait for what like beep Jake is going to use for that, or
it's
what
gonna be
like
something
editing.
like a bike bell. Bing, bing.
Lance, you're a ding ding.
Oh, you suck, dude. You were sending us pictures and video,
Very
and
nice.
we're just sitting here going, what a jackhole.
Lance, I was not that far away from you. Are you? So how far from Park? Well, you're a ways from Park City now, right?
Yeah, we're now like we're like 5 hours away from Park City now. 5 hours further south.
Have you done the mountain biking around Park City?
I have. There's like 80 miles of like glorious trail around Park City.
It is amazing. Park City is heaven. That place is amazing.
Why were you there? I have no idea. Like,
I was there for a running conference, for a physical therapy running conference.
That's cool.
It was a lot of fun. Yeah. And also me and Jake Stout, who's works with me. We both did some awesome runs there too.
Oh,
but
nice.
my God, 8,000 feet feels terrible.
I can feel that. Did you do a hard workout at 8,000?
I think any work, it was everything we did felt hard.
What I find interesting is like a track workout where you're like, okay, 12 times 400. Like this is a workout that I've done. This is a workout I've done 1,000 times, and you go to
10
altitude.
seconds slower. Yeah.
It is. It's exactly what it is.
How does that compare to your little training camp that you did down in Bend, Sun River, when you were telling us about your
when I was
altitude training
dying
down
out
there?
It felt so. The only problem is in Bend, I tried to go really hard.
Yeah.
I was smarter in Park City and knew you just can't go hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you just can't. But you know what's funny is Telluride felt easier. I don't know why Park City felt way harder. I think it was because Lance was only an hour away from me.
That
so
could do
I
it.
was just
That could cause a lot of
felt
problems.
the pressure from Lance.
Right on. I guess I can say, well, we kind of already introduced him. Lance Hepler, how you doing, bud? Lance friggin'
I'm
Hepler.
doing good. Yeah, Lance friggin' Hepler here. Yeah, I'll put you guys into this. You guys just start.
Oh, we just started.
We were just doing intros and we got your text. So, yeah,
Oh,
welcome to
perfect.
the podcast. Well timed. All right, how about some backpedaling? Backpedaling, gents.
Mm-hmm.
Evan, you went first today for the intro. Go first today for your backpedal.
Yeah, just going off that part. So this last weekend, I was in Park City, Utah, having a great time. I was there with a guy named Jake Stout, who is a big-time runner and also PT with me at Evolution Healthcare. And we had a blast. It was a lot of fun. You know, I love going to now that we're past the pandemic, we're shutting down a lot of these continuing ed courses. A lot of these in-person continuing ed courses are coming back. So it was great that this one came back. It's a big, the big names in research around running and endurance sports come to running specifically come to this, and it was great. The Wisconsin University researchers were there. The Tufts University researchers were there.
What kind of stuff are they talking about? Like what was interesting? What interesting topics?
A lot of really interesting topics. So my favorite topic was done by a Stanford MD. Who runs the, I need to get her name. I can't believe I forgot her name because she was my favorite presenter there. But she was presenting a lot of her research around RED-S, which is relative energy deficiency syndrome. Okay. It's kind of our rebrand, not rebranding. As the research has progressed, we've found better ways to define things like the female triad and the male triad.
Yeah, okay.
And there's a lot of new research going into this. Is all very unknown, a lot of it, and it's, we're just kind of stepping through the dark. Like Stacy Sims' research goes into this realm too when we're talking the book Roar and her, I forget what her other book name is, but these are the researchers that are kind of driving that forward and looking specifically at female runners and female endurance athletes.
Interesting.
So it was very interesting. Definitely an endocrine system review for me because the endocrine system is very complex.
Yeah.
Which is just,
I
love
this
diving
theory.
back into
I have a
that
theory
stuff.
that like no one really gets it.
Yeah.
Like no one
There's like when I was sitting in chemistry, like
medical
biochemistry back in the
professionals
day.
are like, we don't know.
Whenever I was sitting back in biochemistry, we always used to sit there. We're like, how do we know this stuff? I was like, are we just guessing at this point? Like, how can we guess and check this? But very, very good exercise in looking through a lot of the most recent research, which I do try to keep up with as much as possible. And there was a lot of good debate at the conference too. There was a woman named Irene Davis who proposed that everybody should be a 4-foot striker, and there was the head researcher from Wisconsin University that said that that's a bunch of hogwash. And it was great to watch the debate back and forth. I lean more on the side that that's hogwash and that everybody's body moves a little bit differently, but it was a great conference. And then I got to run a bunch while I was there. And in my head, I thought, this is the only story I'll tell from this because it was me and, Jake was like, okay, we know we're at altitude. We can't do specifically what was on his training schedule. He's preparing for a big marathon coming up. And he was like, okay, let's do a long, 2-hour run on Saturday. So Saturday I wake up, there's a morning crew run. So I go out on the morning crew run, 4 or 5 miles. And then in the afternoon, when me and Jake are done with class, we're like, all right, let's go to an awesome trail run out here in Park City, Jeremy Ranch. Anybody in Park City, go run on the Jeremy Ranch Road. Or you can bike out there. You can gravel bike on Jeremy Ranch Road too. And it was the most ridiculously beautiful, just rolling dirt road for 10 miles one direction. Actually, I think it's 12 miles one direction. So we just run out, turn around, come back. We're tired. I mean, it's a hard road. So like when we get back, I'm like, man, I feel a little bit light. I don't feel so good. So we get in the Uber going back to the hotel. And this poor guy in the Uber's like pick up 2 dusty random runners off the side of the road, basically.
Right.
I like almost am kind of passing out in this Uber. We get to the hotel and I'm like, I really do not feel good right now. And anybody who has experienced altitude sickness.
That's what I was about to say, yeah.
Let me give you some symptoms here. If you start feeling confused, lightheaded, and like you got to puke, you need to make sure you lay down, get yourself hydrated, and start slowly taking in some food.
It's kind of scary because it's like you're not going down in altitude. It's not like you can get that oxygen back.
And that's what I was telling Jake. I was like, I feel like I just need to like lay down, right? Like standing is really hard. And it happens like that. It was crazy how you just go from feeling great
have a headache
to
or anything.
All of a sudden, like headache, lightheaded, boom, puked 3 times, and I was like,
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I blamed it on the Gatorade cucumber flavor.
Yeah,
Anybody who's had Gatorade cucumber flavor,
bad choice.
It was. I was like, this had nothing to do with altitude. It was
Thunder Mountain flavor.
It was the fact that Thunder Mountain flavor Mountain Dew is terrible. But
Evan, I'm currently at like 8,500 feet.
Do you have a headache, Lance?
I do not. I'm pushing 250 watts at 130 heart rate. So I'm trying to take it easy.
Oh my God, you're like fully acclimated, Lance. If I was pushing 250 at that altitude, I'd be dead right now. That's
Well, I've been here for a week, and also I don't believe in altitude. I just
ignore it.
You think altitude's a myth? Okay, gotcha.
It's a myth.
Lance, you should have presented at the conference with like, what does Lance Hepler have to share? Altitude's a myth.
I'm an accomplished triathlete.
Hot take.
And I'm an accomplished triathlete, and altitude is a myth.
And I rode my mountain bike here. Altitude's a myth.
And the earth is flat, and you guys don't know what you're talking about.
That is awesome.
Well, I'm glad you got to do that conference. That sounds cool.
Yeah. And then last news, I wasn't sure if I was actually going to share this on the podcast or not, but I will because it's kind of, I feel like nobody really cares, but I like to bring you all on my journey as a pro triathlete that nobody should be following that intently. But anyway, I have decided after this last season that I am going to bring on a coach for myself. That is not me for the first time in my life, which will be fun.
I'm conflicted about this because part of me thinks like this is a great idea.
Yeah.
And then part of me thinks Evan's not going to folloll whatever
I was
this coach
very
says.
conflicted. Yes, exactly. I could not agree with you more.
Will it be more debating or more training?
Will there be more secret training going on where I don't share with the coach what I'm doing?
Secret training.
I'm at a point in my life where I really enjoy coaching other people, and I like to be able to put my energy into that without worrying about what I'm doing at the same time.
It might be
lost Lance.
It might be interesting too, like if you and Josh are doing, because then there's less pressure for you to be like secret training or whatever. You know, oh, Josh is doing something cool. I want to do that too. And
I think that that's good. And I
it'll help
know
that
that
on the same program.
At this level, you do actually need to be. There's a reason the best pros in the world usually train with a small group, or with some other guys. Is just. You have to. I mean, like 25 to 30 hours of training, we can get very lonely. It can really wear on you mentally.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have this.
Hello, you have reached the voicemail box of Lance's cell phone.
Does he really have crickets on his voicemail?
Oops, I must have put your cricket button.
And I will make the decision
Let's leave a message.
whether I should call you back or not. Good luck.
His voicemail's hilarious.
At the tone, please record your message.
I'll make a decision about whether I'm going to call you back or not.
For more options.
I've left him a voicemail before.
Oh, Lance, I hope you make a decision to call us back.
Last time I left you a voice message, Lance, you never got back to me.
You made a decision
could you
on your voice.
Back on that one
your
too?
voicemail says, we're going to make a decision on whether or not to call you back, and I feel personally attacked.
I bet that the day he retired, he made that.
I am a very competitive person.
And he's getting made fun of a lot, and he's not even here.
I think it's better he's not on the phone when we just get to pretend like he's here.
That's true. It's easy. It's pretty easy.
That way we don't have to listen to him either.
Yeah. We can easily mute him.
All right, we'll let him go. He can call us back if he gets that sorted out.
I think the coach's news is big.
Yeah, he, and I'll share who his name's Elliot Bassett. The primary reason I like him, he's really not on social media at all.
Yeah.
And he still has a Hotmail email.
Oh, no.
So I like
him. One step above AOL.
I know. Yeah. I like this guy because he is not committed to being in that.
The internet could come and go at any minute.
He's a very niche coach, apparently, that you kind of need to like know people to find, which I really like actually about him. So, but yeah, he coaches a few pros that I race, which is great. And he was Ben Hoffman's original coach before Ben moved on, I think, to Bolton Group. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what Ben's doing now, but he's racing. Yeah. He's racing at Kona.
Exactly. And I mean, he was, Ben Hoffman's coach when Ben was coming through North America as one of the better guys
after
in the field.
College.
Yep. Actually, through college, he was Ben's coach.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yep. So good guy. I like him a lot. We got along, and he seems like a pretty no-nonsense guy, which I like. I don't need a lot of emotion in a coach. The less emotion, the better. So,
do you think that he's going to tend towards the Norwegian style of training?
He seems very flexible with his approach. I think he very much, which I like the most, is as we were talking about, he comes from a physiology background. And I liked that he wasn't somebody that's going to prescribe to a certain type of coaching. He was saying, I wait for what, we discuss, and what the athlete responds best to is all I care about, which I like. Because I don't like trying to shove a circle into a square peg. It's like, if somebody responds to a certain type of training very well, that's the direction he seems to want to keep you. So,
okay.
Yeah. I like that idea, because that's always what's scary with bringing a coach on, is they're going to look at how I'm training. They're like, well, I don't know. I think we need to rewrite the entire wheel here.
Well, but you do want to. There
need to be changes.
There need to be changes, because otherwise, why do anything? But at the same time, I agree with you. I think it's
he's a very good swim coach, and I need to let go of the reins on my own swim training, because clearly I'm not doing it right.
Well, I just think it's always going to be hard.
It is.
But I also think there's this work-life balance piece that you've got working for you right now, and so if you can kind of stick with that schedule, I think that's going to be valuable.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We will see. Yep.
Matt LeGrand.
Backpedal. Mine's quick. I have been mountain biking with a cross-country team this past week, and not any real biking. And I went for one run.
I saw that.
And and it was walk jog, because that's where I'm at in my life. And a couple of swims.
Nice.
Just came from the pool to the podcast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you guys going to win a state championship?
No, we are not.
Okay. So I should take that money out of Vegas then, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The Camas cross country money.
That was a bad idea. I was
but all in. We're all in on Camas cross.
Short on that.
Yeah, we got insider information right now.
When my daughter was in middle school, she was running cross country, and I think that's kind of what that killed her cross country career. But she was never built as a cross country runner anyway. But there was a girl that was on her team that was wicked fast, and she's going to be probably a junior right now.
Okay.
I believe her name is Parker. Is she still in Camas? Is she running with you guys right now? Little blonde?
I don't think so.
No? Oh,
she might have moved on to other sports, though. You never know.
Yeah, she was wicked fast, and there's a lot of people talking about her being the next best
big thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah.
It happens.
As Matt knows, there's nothing better than a young runner coming through with people around them labeling them as the next best thing. That always goes well.
Always goes
She was
well.
a nice girl, and her parents seemed like they weren't pushing her too hard, and she liked to run, and she was just crazy fast. We would go to all the track meets, and she would beat everybody by minutes. It was
I think I know who you're talking about, actually. Pretty sure she was a little whisper runner.
If she went to a different school or moved, or that wouldn't surprise me.
Moved to Israel.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Israel startup.
That's where the fast people go.
Training with Chris Froome.
Yeah.
Sweet. For me, I did my first back-to-back days of riding.
Nice.
First time in almost 3 weeks. So
how's the hip been feeling?
It's still kind of crappy, but it's less crappy than it was before. So instead of being 3 big turds, it's down to maybe one big turd right now. But
1.25 turd.
Yeah, getting there. So I'm taking steps to make that feel better. And
nice.
Actually, I thought I saw you out on the road yesterday. It wasn't you, and I know this for a fact, but I was coming back home, and I could see all the way up, I think it's 34th, if I'm not mistaken.
Some really good-looking guy.
He just looked like he had your stature. He was wearing an orange kit, and I could see it from a very far distance. I'm like, I wonder if that's somebody on the team, and I bet you that could be Matt, because Matt does this. Yeah. There's an intersection that we're coming back on. It's just before you get to Gold's Gym.
Yep.
And Parker, and you turn left, and you start riding on the bike path. I'm like,
that's got a four-way stop.
That's got to be Matt. That's got to be Matt. So I'm booking up to try and catch up to him, and then comes back onto the road after the bike path ends. I'm like, oh, it's David Goodman. So you guys have the same riding characteristics. So
he actually has a interesting the way his
he has a heel whip.
Yeah,
really significant heel whip. Yeah.
I mean, I could tell who it was once I definitely got closer. But
should that light be a four-way stop? You guys live close to that.
Should it be a four-way stop or just stoplight?
Stop signs, like four-way stop instead of the light.
I would like to see him put a traffic circle in there.
Yeah, that's a better idea. That's a much better idea. Yeah.
Traffic circles seem to work really well.
I've always thought that. I've sat at that light before, and I'm like, I'm just going to blow this. This is ridiculous.
Every time you come up to that on a bike, you hit it red. Almost every single friggin' time.
I don't think I've ever actually hit that green.
Traffic circle would be nicer. Do you guys call it a traffic circle or a roundabout?
Roundabout.
How about you?
Whatever, roundabout.
Yeah, call them both.
Soda
but
or pop,
Google calls it a.
In Alabama, you call it Coke.
which is dumb. That's wrong.
Everything's called a
because-
Coke?
Alabama.
because
Okay.
not everything is Coke. So
Exactly. You could literally, like, if I was waiting on you,
Yeah.
what kind of Coke would you like? You can literally say that
Pepsi.
in Alabama, and you could say Pepsi or Mountain
Yeah.
Dew or something like that. I could.
Seriously?
That's a legit question. What kind of
That's like-
what kind of Coke do you want?
Oh wow.
that would be
crazy?
like calling all fruit a banana. Just
Yeah.
being like,
what kind of
hey,
banana do you want?
You're like a
an
blueberry.
apple.
So yeah,
It's crazy.
Tend to
It's
like
crazy.
a Q-tip or a Kleenex or something like
Yeah,
that. I
exactly.
mean, there's all different
Yeah, 'cause
brands.
that's a company. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
But that's how I grew up.
wow, this explains so much.
Yep. That's Coke country
I heard
down
so
there.
many good stories about you. That
Oh man.
few of them I actually will not say on air, but yes, that's
I don't.
yeah.
I'm
So
yeah.
many good stories.
There's-
anyway, back up to almost about 5 hours, and we'll see how that moves forward this week. So,
Yeah.
kind of looking forward to that. But nothing special to talk about. So,
One turn at a time.
one turn at a
There you
time.
go.
Let's
Are you-
move forward.
Okay.
Unless you had a question. What
Oh,
were
I
you-
was going to ask if you're doing indoor stuff too.
I did one indoor ride this past week. It was just a 45-minute. Let's see how the hip's doing, and yeah.
When's
It's getting to be about that
when's
time.
the team Zwifting start? I just forgot when we start that up.
Usually we start the second week in October, but if you guys saw my
That's
ride
right now
title on
still.
Strava yesterday,
Yeah.
October's the new August. So
This is true.
yeah, it's just there's no
We might wait till
rain
the
in
end of
sight, and
October.
it's
Yeah.
going to be like 80s and upper 70s for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we
so
should just roll with this for
Yeah.
a
Oh, yeah.
while.
Absolutely.
Too nice.
I don't start the indoor rides until the weather gets crappy, and usually it's about the second week, sometimes the third week in October. And this time, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's
but
what I'm hoping. We keep on riding it
somewhat
out.
soon.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
you know what's crazy? Like, just to put things into perspective, we've got, and you think of this ride and it's always wet and cold. The Michael Myers ride, his memorial
It's
ride
always
that we
been
do.
wet and freezing.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
a month away.
Dang. Oh my god.
A month away.
If
That's
a
4
nice
weeks
day,
away.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
The
it's
weather
so
can
great.
change.
That's a nice day.
Weather can change.
Yeah.
This is about when it happens, when it hits.
Yep.
So we'll just have to see. But right now, I'm living it up.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. There's other people that are like, "It's too hot. It's too hot." I'm
Oh, I'll
like,
take
"Shut
it.
up."
Oh my god.
Shut
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is fine.
And we got the ugly Christmas sweater ride coming up in like 7 or 8 weeks. I mean, that's just right
Nice.
around the corner. So
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
That one will be cold.
Cool.
It'll be chilly by then. Yeah.
But we need it to be cold because when we're wearing sweaters,
I know, right? I'm not wearing a sweater if it's 85 degrees.
just gonna wear
sleeves off.
some sort of like mankini,
Cut off. Yeah, exactly. I'll just go Speedo then.
speedo, and a Christmas speedo.
Yeah, with a sweater.
Hey, do we have any cycling news? Champ Bailey's on vacation, and who knows where Lance is at? You guys have anything you
it's
guys
more
want to
like
talk about?
transfer window news. I know Vingegaard did good at a race and then
Yeah.
got blown up by Enrique Mas or whatever. I mean,
Right.
but like, who cares who's fit right now as GC riders? Like, if you're fit now, I'm almost more worried about your long-term picture. Like, you should not be fit right now.
Here's a question for you. Where's Nairo Quintana going to end up?
That's good. Does he have any suspension?
I
or
think
anything
he's
like
in
that?
trouble.
He got released from his team. He
Okay,
was
yeah.
released from his contract, so he's
Yeah.
not with
Arkea.
anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think
wants
he's a
him?
GC guy
Israel
anymore.
startup. Israel startup will drop Froome and pick up Nero. They're like,
That would actually be a smart move. 'cause
we're
he
on
could
this
probably
kick of picking up GC guys that are well past their prime.
get- Still, I bet you whoever picks up. I mean, like here's a guy who could podium at a tour or podium at a Grand Tour, who you can probably get for dirt cheap.
Yeah,
because no one wants to touch him.
exactly.
He's good. I mean, he's a good athlete.
Buy low.
What if
Buy
he
low,
went
sell
to
high.
like
Yep.
UAE as like a domestique, a super domestique in the
Yeah.
hills?
That would
That
be-
sounds about right.
That'd be interesting.
I don't think he has the personality where he would want to domestique for anybody.
I have
I
the
don't.
feeling you're
I
right.
don't think that's him. And this is just from the Movie Star documentary that I watched. You know, pretty the Least Expected Day, I think is what that's called on Netflix.
Okay.
They went over the Movie Star team from like 2018 or 19, I think.
Yeah.
Did a really good documentary on, if you remember how many GC contenders were on that team.
Oh, yeah.
And just, there's a lot of drama around with that team. Naro I really liked Naro. I mean, he's Naro, sorry. But he's a hard-nosed guy. Really, really hard-nosed guy. I'm not sure if he's just going to say, hey, I'm not a GC guy
Still
anymore.
has too high of an opinion of himself.
I think so, but not in a bad cocky way. He's a very driven individual. I mean, grew up very poor, you know,
yeah.
he has had to struggle for everything that dude's
Kudos to
had.
him for getting to the station that he's gotten to. But
I just couldn't imagine him being like, yeah, sure, I'll just go grab a paycheck and like be a domestic. Like he believes he's the greatest cyclist of all time, and he is pursuing that. So I don't think he's just going to be like, yeah, I'll grab a paycheck and just ride on the front for a while. We'll see. UAE's got the money to throw at him though.
that could be interesting. Any other racing news out there?
We got Kona coming up
Kona's
right around the corner.
The big one.
In the transfer window. There's Remco Evenepoel drama. When is there not Remco Evenepoel drama?
Every week there's new drama.
Why is not everybody annoyed with this guy? He's annoying to me.
Hey, Lance.
Can you hear me? Hey.
Hey, Lance, did you take Champ Bailey with you down there?
Loance hasn't
No,
been an
Champ
internet
Bailey.
connection.
I have not.
You dropped him on Thunder
Maybe
Mountain?
I didn't make it. Yeah, I lost. And now my heart rate's at 160 because I've been trying to climb to this canyon to get service again.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Well, were you guys done talking about the Kona stuff? You guys have more Kona things to talk about?
They're racing on Thursday.
I mean, I could talk about Kona from now till the end of this podcast.
Yeah,
but
easy.
Yeah.
But we did that last podcast, so
I know. But
has there been
true.
anything that has
We only-
transpired since we last talked about this?
There's no cycling to talk about.
Anybody drop out? Anybody new added?
No one dropped out that I've heard of.
No, nobody. Knocking on wood right now. Nobody has dropped out. There's been, if anybody wants to really just watch fun like Kona week videos, on Lionel's channel, Talbot Cox is putting out all of his pre-race stuff right now. He's going through it. They're all, on edge, taper week edge right now. So we will see. Colin Chartier looks very fit. Joe Skipper looks insanely fit if he can handle the heat. And outside of that, Lionel's he's looking strong. He had one bad day, but he's looking strong. So outside that, really, the women have been much more quiet than the men. The women's race, I am pumped to see on Thursday because
The women's race. I mean, I don't know.
I still think that the win is going to be boring, but everything else is going to be pretty exciting. Like the battle for the podium should be pretty exciting.
Yeah, it should be. I don't know which one I'm more excited about, the women's race or the men's race. They're both going to be so good.
The only reason I'm more excited for the men's race is because the more vibrant personalities are there. But I respect the women's field more because they're all just like quiet workers. Like,
Lance,
all
this
these
is what I
top
get for
women
asking him that question.
Well, what are you guys going to talk about?
so
Bring something to the table.
on my
Lance in the middle of nowhere on the phone right now, pushing 250 at 8,000 feet.
Quit pushing so many watts, Lance. On my channel, there was this.
I saw your pics. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had this I don't know if I would call it kind of like a nasty comment about because
somebody trash talk you.
Yeah, so
you're doing it right. There you go.
No, I mostly because it was I talked about this is the first time that they've had equal women's and men's qualifying spots and someone was like, that's progressive bleep 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 and just kind of, and then
Calm
he was
down,
like,
buddy. Yeah.
he was like he said something along the lines of it was very odd. It was he said something like women would prefer to be at shopping centers and watching soap operas to doing triathlon.
What?
And I was just like, I don't know what I can do with
You just don't
that.
even respond to it. Just that's not even.
Well, I do always have the option of banning people from the channel. Just be like, you're gone.
There is constructive. Me and Cassie have had this talk because I did not think that the women's field should have had that many slots this year. There's a reason that I'm saying that. Now, Cassie called me out and she said, for the women's field to get to the point where there are 50 competitive women, they need to start now.
See,
which
I'm
I
on
completely
Cassie.
get.
I'm with Cassie on this.
My only point was I think it needed to be slower increases so that there was you needed to test to see what the field's going to look like. Look at first place to last place in the women's field this year. It'll be
crazy.
I'm telling you, there are 10 women in that field that have no business at a world championship.
How cool is it for that woman to say, I got to race in this field with all of these women and go back and plant those seeds to other women, and you don't know who that's going to affect down the road.
That's the one cool
and
part.
actually, this guy had the same point in the comment section. He was like, you're leaving off a guy that can go 8:30 for a girl that's going 10:30. And I said,
the
you know
counterpart
what?
to that is it does plant the seed for future women, which I completely agree
Which I agree
with.
with.
I think it needed to move slower, though, because I'm telling you, there are 10 women in that field. I was looking at results. They do not have business in that field.
But here's the thing. You're not taking away spots from guys.
No, you're not. Well,
because they're on a different day. It doesn't matter.
And the
they're
men's
not
field's
taking away
not going
spots.
to, and the men's field's not.
They're not going to.
It's not going to grow any from there. It's a full race anyway. They don't need to grow.
They're
the men's
good.
Field.
They're going to stick with the guys.
But I'm saying that there are a couple of women there that it'd be equivalent of me jumping into that men's
There's
race.
going to be some girl that runs that goes over 11 hours or something.
Oh, for sure. There's going to be maybe somebody close to 12.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking Danielle Reeve too.
What's that?
He's just trolling you, Matt.
Okay. He could be trolling me. He could be. And
Probably he's trolling.
He is crushing the troll.
Yeah.
Like he is nailing it. He's doing a
you
good
should call
job.
him out and say that he can just go ahead and try to bike with Daniela Reef then. That's fine, Yeah. If he really has that strong of an opinion on it and think women need to be back in the kids, he's like, okay, you could go and try and hold on Daniela's Reef.
Yeah, because honestly, she'll have one of the best bikes of the day, guys included. Not overall bike, but
she'll have a top 100 bike, I bet, which is flying.
She'll have She will
Actually, she
her
might be
second
top
half.
75.
Her second half of her bike will be top.
Yeah. She's
25
flying.
or something.
She's so well. The second half of the bike is when she's strong.
That's where she'll.
The first half she's good.
She'll
she's really
she'll crush
strong
some of the guys because the guys will go out and do the thing that they do, which is go too hard after the swim.
Yes.
And then Daniela will not do that. She will.
The
she will
pro
crush the
women's
second
field
half.
races much smarter in Kona than the men's field. I had this talk with somebody where we were talking about like how the women's pro field, the group of women that are there right now, how they handle the heat. They race much smarter than the men's field.
I think that you're right, and it's also a little bit more spread out, whereas the guys' race is going to be more tactical.
Yeah, and guys do stuff that they shouldn't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's going to be fun to watch.
Women are smarter than men. That's just a fact of life, I think. But that's a bold take.
Bold take.
If you had to go out there and race this coming weekend,
oh God,
with your half shape that you have right now, A, would you finish, and B, what would your time be?
I'm not even
Oh,
sure
you
if
could
I'd
finish.
finish. I mean, would I? I don't know, man. Because I
If
would
you
probably
pace
get
yourself,
race
you
burn.
would-
Yeah, if I
yeah.
pace myself, I'd finish. Let's say if. I mean, honestly, I think whatever Josh would finish, I think Josh might beat me. I think Josh is better heat acclimated right now. Maybe
I
would bike very strong.
He's
I know.
pretty
I
trained
bike
up to
very
that
strong.
distance too, isn't he?
You typically don't get beat by Josh.
Yeah,
In the half stuff, right?
Josh has listened to this, man. Don't tell him that out loud.
But it's just a fact.
He's got the dog in him, man. He's gonna kill me next year if you say that too loud.
Well, you've never raced him in a full, so
I've
there's
never-
that.
Well, we did one-on-one race in a full, and I ended up walking and pulled out. But in an
Yeah,
actual
that's true.
race, no. God, where would I finish? Probably between 8:55 and 9:10.
Really?
I finished somewhere around there.
You think so, huh?
Yeah, I think I finished right around 9.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I'd be well into the 8s by any means. I do not think I'd be like 8:40. No way.
I
8:50.
think the course has the potential to be decently fast. I think
Yeah.
it's gonna be. I think we're gonna have some fast times this year.
It depends on wind conditions. Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
My main problem would be I would be so far behind any swim pack. I mean, Cam Wharf would be dropping me. It'd be bad. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Guys want to jump into the topic for this week?
Yes.
What you got? What you got for us?
What do I got? Well, I'm
This
just
is
going to
from
read the
Evan,
words. How should I structure my off-season training?
Lance?
I don't know what off season means.
I know,
don't
he doesn't,
understand the term.
Well, luckily
That's
for
gonna be
Lance,
like the theme of this whole podcast. We don't understand.
when you can
off-season.
jump when you can jump into said adventure van and go to anywhere where the sun shines, you don't need an off season. There's no reason for an
right.
off season when you can
What's
jump in
the
an
point?
adventure van.
There's no point in an off season.
No.
Just ride your bike every day.
Exactly. Well, so I think that if we were talking a couple different sports here, if we're talking cycling right now is pretty. Lance, how far are we into the cross season at the moment?
halfway.
We're halfway through it.
Halfway into the cross season? Gotcha.
Yeah.
So really the cross season is done by what, like the end of November-ish, beginning of December?
There's races, but
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's usually done by that point. I think the Cross Crusade goes through November 20th or something like that.
Yeah.
And then nationals are like in December.
Gotcha.
If you're doing that.
Gotcha. I do remember that because it's always very cold there. So really when you're looking at the cycling season, an off season in cycling is probably your just after the holidays. So we're talking January, February, and then by the end of March is when road season's picking up, depending on where you're living. So it's like a ballpark 3-month time period for cyclists. In triathlon, I think it's a little bit, unless you're like me and you're going to travel towards the equator to race a little bit, it's a little bit longer off season. So we're talking like probably actually from now. I mean, really, it's like after
really-
Kona is when most people start. So we'll say
sure.
we'll say all of October, November, December, January, February, and then part of March. Actually, I think is like what you would be saying would.
I
be
think that's a fair assessment for triathlete to be like Kona to, what do you say, like May?
Oceanside would be kind of like the start of your typical, even just like person who does Ironman season. You're talking Kona to Oceanside is the gap for North America. We're talking North America.
I feel like
if you
that's
live
fair.
in Brazil, my God, you can race through the winter if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's races all over. I mean, Ironman has a race almost every single weekend, I think. Don't they?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their like worldwide calendar, it's everywhere.
I think it's almost every weekend.
You got options.
Yeah. It's quite a bit. But yeah, I think that so we're talking a shorter off season for cyclists, 2.5, 3 months, and upwards of 5 months for triathletes, depending on who you are.
Yeah.
Running, Matt, well, it depends on if you race indoor track, but let's say you're a marathoner.
I know that's the easier. That's the easier take, right? Like marathoners, I think, because marathoners may be doing 2 competitive marathons per year.
Yeah.
And so then
they race even less than a triathlete.
It's kind of different than having like an off season, but then for like collegiate runners or whatever, they have like a real season where it's cross country, indoor, outdoor, and the off season during the summer, which is super weird.
So it's a little different weather-wise. Yeah.
So my kombucha lease was up.
Yeah.
So I had to step out for just a second.
Kombucha.
in the process of doing so, I ran into somebody, and he's going to join us today.
And you're like,
hello, Mr. Didlick. How's it going?
Edward.
I'm still sore.
We were talking about this.
I want to subtly bring in the marathon point there because somebody said at this table just as of less than 24 hours ago did a marathon.
Not for nothing, but you coach him. And this guy, I don't know if he knows what an off season is, maybe or maybe not. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but
I don't think so.
He's here. I'm like, you want to come join us? You've got something out of this.
Also, I have had the off season talk with now, I think like 10 of the people I coach just in the last like 2 days.
Yeah.
I'm almost like a broken record on the fact that I sound like that really bad football coach back in the day. Whenever I say this, I'm like, I don't believe in off seasons, but not in the bad way where I'm like, no, man, just grind all year round.
I see what you're doing. I've got you pegged. No.
Yeah.
You're like, Jake, can we do a podcast on off season stuff so you can say your whole piece and you just can tell all of your clients, blanket statement, email, whatever, go listen to the podcast.
I've been using the podcast the last few weeks. It's just like any topic somebody's asked me about, I'm like, I'm just going to put it on the podcast so I don't have to actually have a 2-hour conversation about this. So.
I like it. You're optimizing your time.
I did say I was going to fire him after the Norwegian training podcast.
Yep.
I don't need you anymore. This is fine.
You got this.
And the problem with coaching Ed is really smart. See, I'm really good at coaching not smart people. I'm joking. Clearly joking. But Ed one of these days is going to be like, dude, you already told me everything, and I definitely learned quick. So this is
we're good. That's funny. We're good here.
No, but coaching Ed's been fun because I like coaching people that have varied goals, I guess is the way to put it, or they have a varied background. Like Ed is going ultra distance type events here, but actually has a really good like short system too. He's a guy who, if went out to, I know he would never say this about himself, but like could go to short track or PIR. And if we focused on that for a little bit,
you
could be very competitive at both those. Yeah. So a varied system.
Yeah, that's nice.
So Edward yesterday ran the Portland Marathon. How did that go for you?
Yes. Race report.
Well, considering I had no direct preparation,
we were not training for a road marathon.
This was decided Friday evening / Saturday morning that I'd go ahead and do this.
Yeah.
It went as well as I really could have hoped. I mean, I've run more than a dozen marathons in my life. I can now say I've run 3 well.
Nice.
Because I paced it relatively evenly until I started to have some hamstring issues with about 6 miles to go.
Yeah.
Dialed things back a little bit so that it hopefully wouldn't blow up on me.
Mm-hmm.
Managed to get to 25 that way, and then was jumping on the side of the road in pain for a little bit, but still like speed limped it in at like a 9-minute mile. So
what was the 10K look like profile wise, the last 10K?
It's all up and down the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like they call it fast and flat.
No.
It's not really that hilly in any perceptible way, except you're like, why is this thing rising again and still going down just a little bit? And with all the bridges that you go over, the whole course is
because every bridge is going to be a hill. Like anytime you're hitting a bridge, it's always going to be.
But it's a well put on event, and
nice
tons and tons of aid stations and a great crowd. So good weather, nothing to complain about.
Training was not optimal going into this one?
No, it was just definitely not directed towards that.
We were doing a lot of ultra training. Ultra training. Okay, so you've done some long runs.
You've got to tell the big picture here. Like, what are you training for right now? This was like just a training thing for you to go do.
This was a training day. This was absolutely a training day.
And you've only got a few weeks left before you're heading off to do this thing. Let's talk about what that is.
So I got roped into running rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon on the 29th of this month, so October 29th.
Okay.
2 weeks ago, I ran most of the way around Hood on the Timberline Trail, but that was like a 15-minute mile. And then I went and ran this.
How far is that? 30K or is it 30 miles?
I did
50K?
27 miles.
Okay.
I was supposed to go 33, but my water filter wasn't working, and I ran out of water. So discretion is a better part of valor.
Okay, so rim to rim to rim. Give us a profile breakdown on that. What is it?
Start at the north rim of the Grand Canyon at about 8,000 feet of elevation. Run basically a mile vertically down over a 14-mile stretch to like 2,500 feet elevation, and come back up the south rim to a 7,000-foot elevation, touch the sign, turn around and do it all over again, because I'm not very smart. Despite
Total
what everyone says.
stats on that again for the folks at home that don't have their calculators out.
What's the elevation gain on it? It's a lot.
46 miles distance, 11,200, give or take. Both up and down, of course, because
it's a monster of a day, but also shows a good sign of, as we were talking about. There's two different types of systems that we have to, like a marathon run for somebody who is trying to like PR. For somebody who's trying to PR a marathon run, and Matt knows this too. Is you have to train very specifically at certain paces, and there's this very consistent pounding effect and strain on the muscles. As brutal as an ultra is, as Ed now knows better than anybody, you're more than anything training your gut. Like you're basically training the ability to process food for a really long time. And, it's 10 to 15 minute miles, so it's much less pounding on the body, but it's a lot of time on feet. So your metabolic system has to be ready to go.
What do you think the temperature swing is going to be? Because that's something interesting to me, right? Because like you're starting in the morning, I presume. Yeah, it's probably cooler.
We anticipate starting and ending in the dark, just given the time of year. Yeah. I saw a report from just last week. Everybody's asked me about the temperature. I said it could be 100 degrees, it could be freezing. And this report I saw, it was literally 33 degrees when they started. It was 100 degrees at Phantom Ranch.
Right.
So we have no idea what to expect. I mean, the elevation alone, the Box Canyon effect, all that can lead to wild temperature swings.
Right.
And so we kind of need to be prepared for anything, but that's also kind of part of the adventure.
Yeah. Is this 100% self-supported?
That's what I was going to ask too. You're bringing water, which is the big
He's got a
weight.
great pack, though. I mean, that thing, you got a 3-liter pack, right?
So I'll bring my Salomon S-Lab Advanced Skin 12 or something fancy like that, which is not the pack you're thinking of.
Okay,
It's my running pack. It holds a 2-liter bladder and 2 small things, the same way that Camelback chase vests that you sell at the lab do. It's fantastic. It feels like it's just part of the body when you're on. And I'm going to carry 2 spare empty crushable bottles just in case.
And you're training. You're training by going no water. Like
we're
for your last 27 miler.
Accidentally last week. Yeah, that was not on purpose.
I ran out of water when I had about 6 miles to go.
Yeah.
And my wife, who was kind enough to kind of play rescue and was staying at a hotel down in Welch's all day in case something went sideways. And I just decided it was easier to have her pick me up at our defined bailout point than risk not being able to filter water at a later date or a later point in the run.
This is why it's easier for me to coach Ed those, because of the ultra athletes I coach, I trust his decision making a little bit more than. Luckily, I know a couple other ultra runners do not listen to this podcast, but I do not always trust their decision making.
Do you plan on doing more ultras, like going forward after this one?
I've done a few 50Ks before.
Yeah.
I tried the JFK 50 miler a few years ago and had to bail at 50K. Yeah. So I don't know.
I just think this is a good area of the country for ultras. Like I feel like it's like we've got like some really cool.
It's a pretty
companies.
robust schedule for ultras. I mean, there's some parts of the country where you gotta drive a couple hours just to find an ultra. So yeah. All
right, so let's bring.
Hey,
what?
Go ahead, Lance.
Ed, a couple things here. I was at the North Rim of the Grand Canyon yesterday.
I saw that.
How was the weather?
And if you look at the temperature, I think the temperature was like 55 at the rim of the north Rim, so it was quite comfortable.
Hopefully it stays that way the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to warm up down there. Are you? So I'm interested in the water. Are there places to refill water? So Phantom Ranch is down at the river. I guess you hit Phantom Ranch twice on the way out and on the way back. Do you refill water there? Are there other places to refill water?
That's a good question.
Yeah, there are very old pipes that run through the canyon, which are often out of service, and you just sort of don't know until you're there.
Don't plan on
them
having water.
There's 5 of us going. Every single one of us is separately carrying a water filter just in case. I'm playing the logistician or the logistics guy on this, trying to make sure nobody dies, basically, and making sure that we're all prepared. And the idea being that we can have a group of 2 in front, we can have somebody off the front, but we can't leave anybody back behind on their own. And everybody, since we don't know who's going to fall into what group, needs to be able to be completely self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So the hope is that we can get potable water. We don't have to break the filters out, but just in case, we're going to have them.
I mean, the nice thing about a touch the sign and back is if anybody is really in trouble, you're going. I mean,
that's the out.
Ideally, you don't want to see them 2-3 hours after they're really in trouble, but there will be. It's not like a loop where you get there, you're like, crap, where is everybody? So yeah.
One of my friends lives in Phoenix, and when I mentioned this to him, he's like, I will come and drive the 3 hours to get you from the South Rim if something really goes wrong. That applies not only to you but to all your friends.
Yes.
So.
All right, so let's bring.
So
go ahead.
Is that why you're doing it in October? You're hoping for better temperatures.
Yeah,
because
probably
that's
most
usually,
ideal.
In large part, that, and it just fit everybody's schedule.
Yeah, and August is
okay.
hot.
Let's bring this thing back around to talking about off-season training. Now that we know this, I'm really curious to know what your approach is. When is your off-season? And we'll get into that in a minute. But, when I stepped out, when I ran into Mr. Edward here, what had you guys already covered? Where are we at?
So off-season wise, me and Matt were kind of defining what typically in a triathlon schedule would be off-season, in a runner, what's the off-season, and then in a cyclist. Specifically, cycling does get a little easier to predict the off-season because if you are a cyclist that's going to do cyclocross and early season road racing.
Yeah, especially in this area, it's like
it's a pretty defined
off-season
season.
is going to be January, February,
it's basically January, February,
March,
part of March. Yeah.
And then I think.
Yeah.
Well, for the most part, I mean, there's not too many people. I mean, I guess there are a fair amount of people that do the road stuff as well as the cyclocross stuff. But I think larger part, though, there's a lot of folks that are just done with cyclocross around here sometime in November.
Yeah.
So
I think that you're talking about a pretty isolated season for cyclists. Matt made the point that obviously for triathletes, it's a much longer season if you're not willing to travel a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even argue in runners, it's a completely random off season depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you're a collegiate track guy, it's your summer. If you're an ultra runner, I at least know when my mom was doing ultra running, there may not be an off. I mean, you're capable of doing, I knew ultra runners that would go and do snowshoeing races, which arguably, in my opinion, was harder work, honestly.
I think what you'll see there's just different types of runners, right?
Yes.
And so you'll see the classic marathoners that'll do 2 marathons, and that's typically fall and spring where you'll have your bigger marathons for the most part.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have.
That's your peak season.
Yeah. Those are peak races, for example, but then you have. That you still could have like a winter off season.
Yeah.
And you could have a summer off season, but most people don't because it's just.
And I think that a lot of what I'm seeing, and I was actually talking with 2 coaches over the weekend when we were in Park City, and we were making good points. I think not that an off season is overrated, but what I tell people is it's usually when somebody's mentally fatigued out on the type of training that they're doing or the type of racing they were peaking for. My only shift is definitely not, and I do have an athlete I actually talked with this about because she used to take really long off seasons, and she struggled through the tri-season because I was telling her is when you're not somebody who has the ability to full-time train like 30, 35 hours a week, that if you take a 4-week time period and become sedentary, especially as an endurance athlete, you will see big performance drops. And those adaptations do take a while to get back. There have been really good studies that actually look at even just like bed rest, for example. Bed rest, you will see muscle atrophy in up to 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
Now, beyond that, when you're talking how we used to treat ACL rehab and all that, that person would be straight-legged for 6 to 8 weeks. Imagine if you're seeing muscle atrophy in 5 days, 6 to 8 weeks, multiple compounded. This is why people suffered lifetime issues.
And you see that in anyone that wears a cast, right? Like it's like you wear a cast.
Plantar fasciitis in a boot. If anybody is zoning out during this, and listen, if you ever have plantar fasciitis, never put your foot in a boot. It's going to be the worst thing you ever do for yourself.
Gotcha.
But it's just looking at, okay, we're really mentally fatigued out on, let's say, a road season. Like you're a cyclist and you're like, I don't even want to look at my road bike anymore. Cool. Like grab a mountain bike.
Yep.
Do a cyclocross season. Anything that's that change in impulse to keep fitness, because it is really easy to keep momentum going. It is very hard to get momentum. So keeping momentum going simple, getting it going is a nightmare.
So are we talking about off season as in the true definition where you're actually completely stepping away from
racing, let's say,
or just stepping away from your sport in general?
Yeah,
because the true definition when you're talking about periodization with an off season, you're not doing your particular sport. You're doing like active rest. You're doing anything other than what it is that you typically would do, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I disagree heavily with like classic periodization though.
Yeah,
but that's the classic definition would be like, you peaked for racing. Let's say you hit like your state championship road race or whatever like that, and you take like a 2-month time period where you drop your volume from, let's say you're riding 12 hours a week to like, I'm doing like 2-3 hours a week.
But you're doing other stuff. You're not being completely sedentary. Or if you are injured, that's a good time to take care of
That's
stuff.
also true. Sometimes it's a forced one.
Gotcha.
Which also means you probably
I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, because there are a lot of people that use that term incorrectly. And they just talk about the time that when their last race is done to the time where their first race starts.
Yeah.
So in that period, you're going to have like an off season, you're going to have a preseason, and all of that stuff is collectively being called an off season for some people.
Yeah.
So
I think when I look at off-season, and this is what the conversation I'm going to be a broken record here on the last couple of conversations I had with some of the triathletes I coach, is if you felt like you really mentally needed an off-season badly, that meant we need to adjust your training a little bit, because my goal is not, this is why I dislike periodization heavily, is I really do not like big peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. We're talking big peaks and valleys. We're flirting with injury. We're flirting with also like really ruining your endocrine system. Like when we're talking about like hormonal cycles in athletes, like if you're really feeling like, man, I was on top of the world for like 2 weeks and now I feel like absolute trash and can't get out of bed, whatever we were doing training wise was too big up and down. Mm-hmm. And you should not feel like you have to have an off season. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not striking that balance for somebody, I need to adjust how we're training, because my goal is you enjoy doing this 12 months out of the year. We just need little changes in what the goal is at that time.
I think that I disagree in some ways, and one
Please
of
play
which
devil's advocate.
I love it, but
just tell me I'm an idiot.
in one way where, like, sure, granted, you have natural peaks and valleys when you race an Ironman race or you do a crazy ultra race, right? Where it's like
the race itself.
You might not. How do you feel today? Chipper, like you want to go for a long run, or sore and beat up? I'm guessing you probably feel like you don't want to go, down a flight of stairs.
There's a reason I'm gladly sitting here instead of at my desk.
Yes.
I needed a distraction.
But Ed's not even a good example of this, because I have very few people that can actually absorb volume like him. So if
I know. I'm like,
given something that I give to Ed to some
wrong.
of my other people, I'd be like, oh God, this is not good.
Like, I'm supposed to run 20 miles again on Sunday.
Yeah.
But
we'll see how we feel Thursday.
I think, hopefully getting some light stuff, even spinning your legs will hopefully start to feel come around.
Today was supposed to be just yoga.
But for typically for me, it's you start to, I have injury issues post Ironman race, and I have found that the things that work best for me is a change in volume, and it's different. It's not, it's almost like you can redirect stuff a bit, right? Like more swimming. And I think this is something you probably agree with, where it's like, less running, more swimming.
Oh, after an Ironman, I don't think you should be. Well, unless you really are a robust athlete. I mean, I'll take Josh out of this conversation, because Josh will go on a run on Monday after an Ironman. But 90% of your Ironman athletes running that next week is going to be a no-no. It's going to be biking and swimming, and that's it.
And I mean, I'm not saying that people should do zero running. I'm just saying that that is a change in volume for sure.
But this is also why I don't promote the Ironman to a lot of people I coach, is because I really do believe it's like when we're talking about like how to avoid somebody needing an off season, we do have to look at the type of racing they're doing too. Sure. I mean, like if somebody was like, my only goal is to do race across America as a cyclist, I'd be like, okay, you're probably going to hate your bike for like the next year after that. I've seen enough people go through Race Across America where it's like, that's the tippy top, and it's awesome. I love that people want to go and do that, but that's obviously not for everybody, but not even for really, like, it's just you're asking the most out of your body. And for some people, an Ironman is asking the most out of the body. So you're going to have to realize that that's a peak that you're going to come down from, and it's going to be a very hard come down, as Matt knows. But
and so maybe you've got a good point that it's like, and that race is too much.
Yeah.
Which
people never want to hear, because they're like, well, I just watched that on NBC Sports. I really want to do that. Like, don't. It's a bad idea.
You have to crawl across the finish line.
Do Olympic distances. They're great.
I was going to say Olympic distances are great. You could
wonderful races.
You could do them, every weekend
over and
theoretically.
Over. Yep. And it depends on who you are. I mean, there's definitely runners out there that can reproduce good long I mean, Ed's trained with people like this too, or people who can knock out a 50K almost every weekend, and like that's kind of their homeostasis. They can kind of stay there.
And there's different like races too. Like a 50K trail run might not beat you up as much as
a road marathon.
Yeah. It's just they're just different beasts.
Well, and think of as a runner. So bringing the off-season conversation to runners, we're talking about a little bit different tax on the body than cyclists. Cyclists can absorb a lot more hours, obviously. And I mean, it's typical when you look at even your GC Tour pros and all of that, they are able to, even in their off season, quote unquote, I don't even know why we call it a cyclist off season. Those guys are doing more volume in their off season than they do actually in season. I mean, they can absorb massive loads. Your best marathoners, as Matt know, after they hit their big peak marathons, they do need a couple weeks down because the actual toll on the body is a lot. Like, as fine. It's just like, I mean, once you hit mile 20 to 25, that is, and the difference between running a 12.5 minute mile versus running an 8.5 minute mile is a lot of force on the joints and tendons, especially I know we always talk about the joints. People don't appreciate that the tendons, specifically talking about like Ed's hamstring areas, the tendons have to also protect the joints, so they will start to tighten and tighten and tighten over time.
Well, and I think with road cycling, with road running in particular, it's the repeated impact, and it's the same impact.
Yeah.
Like apart from
there's
hills,
no break from that at that
apart
point.
from hills up or down, your stride is almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're running a trail race, you're constantly dodging little things, and that little bit of variety in motion makes it so much easier for the body to absorb all of it, in my opinion. Whereas it's like just getting hit in the head at the same point over and over again. Eventually, you're going to get a skull fracture. Something's going to break if you hit it enough times.
This is why, like, if you told me, would you rather be in the NFL or a professional boxer? I'd be like, I'll take the NFL because at least the hits are a little different every single time, and I don't just want to be getting hit in the head over and over.
Typically, you make a lot more money.
You probably make more money. Yeah.
Way less concussions. A lot of concussions, but
you
way
would
less.
crush in either one, though.
Oh, I'd be great. I'm built for both those sports.
Get crushed.
No, he would.
Yes.
So, Ed, that's probably the last big thing you have on your calendar for the year, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
So what is November and December going to look like for you?
Talk to this guy.
That is
dialed cycling team. You're just we're gonna go ride. We're
I'm
gonna
gonna
have
do
fun.
the dialed 100 on my own.
Preference. My preference, Fred, would be we may make a little shift into some cycling. I think it's going to be the
That's
primary
really
shift.
the plan, because after an embarrassing showing at the Oregon Trail Gravel Grinder last year,
it's got an axe grind.
I immediately signed up again because, despite what he says, not very smart.
Yeah.
What's the date on that?
It's 5 days, end of June.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right around the summer solstice.
That sounds awesome.
And I just want to go and finish it. I'm not trying to race it this year because I realized that I dig myself way too deep of a hole when I do something like that for 5 days. And if I figure out I can just finish it, then great, I'll go back and try to race it.
For how smart of a pacer Ed is as a runner, he's equally as not good of a pacer on the gravel scene. So there's, however, take the percentage of whatever good pacer he is as an ultra runner, he's that bad at pacing gravel races.
I can pace things really well between 3 and 4 hours. After that, it's crapshoot because I just don't have that much time to do that many long training rides.
Yeah.
And so until
that's
you
the
get
problem
used
with
to
some
it,
of these gravel races is, I mean, you look at just the length and the idea of racing some of these gravel races. You're like, yeah, well, I mean, your typical person with a job, career, and life cannot race for 5 hours. Like, that's a long time to race. Yeah.
So it's a
And I
calibration
signed
thing.
up for the gravel grinder as well.
Nice.
So
Oh, cool.
maybe
You were also
maybe I'll
signed up
hang
this
with you.
past year, so
So Lance is bringing all the food and accommodations,
and I
right?
didn't show up. Yeah, that's right.
despite my harping on you for like 6 weeks leading up.
I was signed up and I still didn't go. You are correct. But I'm planning on doing it this next year, hopefully.
Misery loves company, man.
Yes.
That's true.
So then, like, looking at somebody who, let's say, is looking at doing a very long, I actually just brought on somebody, Coach Wise, who's going to be doing, like, very, very long distance type cycling events specifically, is the winter to me is, so we're talking as you get closer and closer to that race, obviously the volume's going to have to naturally increase so the system's ready for that. Because really there's adaptations that need to be made over long periods of time. I think sometimes, and I actually notice this in some cyclists, because I mean, I'm not sure if it's just the fatigue on just cycling being in a repetitive activity, but they really think it's like, I'm just going to take like the next 4 or 5 weeks, not do much, and then I'll start that build for season. It's like, okay, you need to maintain your base at some point. And if you were over voluming way too much leading into that, you need to look at your whole year again. But you cannot just not ride for 4 or 5 weeks and then expect to be able to do, like, I mean, the Oregon Gravel Ranch is a great example. And that, I think, is the mistake people make when they try to define their off season, is like, we almost sometimes convince ourselves like, oh my God, I need a break from this sport. And you're like, well, yeah, but like, just do something a little bit different or just do a little bit less and see how you feel. Because I actually find, and I've got a lot of theories on this as a PT, I think a lot of severe injuries, not chronic injuries, because a lot of endurance athletes have something that's been nagging for a while, definitely. But when we're talking about really bad acute injuries, those sometimes do come from people who took long periods off, lost some tissue tolerance adaptations, and then they jump right back in with a little bit too much fever, and they really try to, like, they're like, oh man, I got 9 weeks of this marathon and I got to start right now.
And you remember that you can either
Short-term
run
memory
or
loss on
whatever,
that,
right? It's like, I remember that I could do a 100-mile bike ride, no problem.
yeah.
Let's go do it. Or, I mean, probably not biking is like the one thing that you can sometimes get away with it, but running is the worst.
I know he does not listen to this podcast, so I'll say this, but I remember when he was way more injury prone, Sam Parsons on Tin Man Elite this guy would take 2 weeks off running, like saying, oh man, my Achilles is bothering me. And you just take 2 weeks off, like mid-season almost. And then boom, jump and do like a 75-mile intensity week right after that. And just up and down Achilles injury over and over again. I was like, dude, you need come on. That's like, you've been doing this long enough. That's not smart. Like, you're going to blow yourself up. But he's training very differently now. But yeah.
Good. All right. Well, what else you got there?
Don't do big ups and downs, people. You want a nice little in the middle.
I think
big ups and downs are bad.
My off-season recommendation for people is go do fun things. Like if you're for
unstructured volume
for the runners or whatever, we will say something along the lines of 2 weeks off, which sounds like very, opposite of what Evan's saying. But I also think
these are kids that hopefully are staying active otherwise.
Yes.
Go play a ball sport.
Go do fun things. Or the way I used to do it personally was because I loved running. I love running.
Yeah.
And so someone tells me 2 weeks, someone tells me 2 weeks off, and I would just do this. I'm really listening to what you're saying, and I'm not going to do any of it.
How many miles a week were we running? 50? I'll do 70 in these 2 weeks.
But what I would do is I would drop the weekly mileage down, and I would go find new trails. That would be it.
Yeah,
that's the job.
Yep.
And you could walk, jog, whatever, but it was not hard. There was no intensity to it, and that was I think the bigger thing for all of us to think about is the mental relief of training pressure.
Yeah.
Do you know what was really cool? One of the studies they were looking at was rate of injuries in collegiate female runners. There was a decrease in the female runners who came from a ball sport background.
Yeah, I was asked this yesterday. It was do you prefer
bone injury specifically,
having athletes that have come from other sports? And you're like, well, yeah, kind of. I mean, you just don't want kids to just, like you said, you were talking about repetitive pounding against your head. Eventually you're going to crack. And when you have these kids that have come from other sports like soccer or whatever is the classic example, they tend to have a little bit more, I don't know,
resiliency. Usually.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it's not, we're talking on grand scales. You can find a million examples, I'm sure, of soccer athletes going to cross country who come up with injuries. But
yeah, sure.
The best examples, we were talking about bone stress injuries. So as runners, we're talking bone stress injuries. Cyclists, really think of muscular fatigue issues, kind of what, Jake's going through a little bit different because this was an acute issue, but it's chronic, muscular issues when somebody's my right glute is always tight on me whenever I'm on the bike or this or that. You have to load that tissue a little bit differently for it to adapt. And the best example is tibial stress fractures in young cross-country runners. If you're seeing a kid who's repeated stress injuries on the bone, it's a tough conversation. And this clinician was talking, this is a hard conversation to have, especially at the collegiate level, but it's, you got to bring the mileage down, and you need to do varied activities. It has to be varied activities at that point. Because that bone has shown that it is not able to adapt to the current load. So you have to strengthen it. The only way to strengthen that bone is it has to be under varied loads then, because clearly that repetitive load is not, you're losing the osteoclast to osteoblast conversation then. Osteoblast builds bone, osteoclast breaks down bone.
So I have an athlete that has had multiple stress fractures and is very scared of, doing more mileage or long runs or things like that, which is understandable. It's, we want to keep you healthy. We want you to make it through the entire season. And so for them, in their mind, they have a number that they don't want to go over weekly mileage wise. And I have a hard time.
There's a lot of good research in that.
So I don't,
there's a lot of fear with that.
For that, that's tough for me to deal with because it's not my own personal experience. I had a stress fracture when I was a freshman in college doing 60, 70 miles a week. And it was just I wasn't sleeping well. And that's why I had the stress fracture. But then, 2 years later, I'm doing 120 miles a week.
And you're fine.
No problem.
Yep.
And so I don't think that there's a magic number. And so when I hear someone tell me that this is their magic number, I'm always grinding my teeth a little bit. But at the same time, there's also this bit this is what they've decided in their mind. Let's not push. It's not worth telling someone otherwise. Yeah. So after the season, I'm happy to sit down and have a talk with them and be I don't believe that there is a magic number. Now that the season's over and we're doing, a little bit of a down period, it's just different than
people just have to, I think, sometimes assess their goals. I mean, it's
sure.
And I think that I see this in a lot of people who come through me from a PT perspective, not a coaching perspective, but a PT perspective is people really have a mismatch on what they think speed is going to feel like and what it's going to be for them. I think that whenever people are like, I want a PR, I want to go, I want to be a pro triathlete, or I want to be a D1 this or that. They have to realize that, okay, talk to anybody who's been down that road. Very rarely is somebody not injured. Very rarely along that path. You're going to run into volume issues, but when that is your goal, you're going to be flirting with, one, you don't get to take off season then at that point, in my opinion. If that's really your long-term goals, you better be training well enough that you are able to accumulate a lot of work over a long period of time.
Yeah,
and if you're not that person, that's okay, but you need to reassess your goal then and look at yourself and be like, maybe I'm not a D1 cross-country runner. That's fine then, because then you get to be healthy. The problem is, I think, when people way overshoot their goals and I've become much more brutally honest sometimes as a coach, where I'm just like, this is where you're at, and this is not where I think you can be in 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Which is fine. I think that's something that you need to be able to communicate with people.
Right. This person is like happy just to make it through the season, and the collegiate running thing could be in their future. It's just, and I believe in that. For them, but I don't. For them, they're just like, I just want to make it through this season and have fun with my friends.
I'm going to homecoming this weekend. I don't care.
Yeah. So I think it's good. I think it's interesting.
Let's talk about what your off season into preseason looks like. Are you trying anything new this coming year? Let's talk about this year specifically. Yeah,
for you.
I know that you're starting up with a new coach.
I know. I haven't told Ed this yet. I have somebody who's going to coach me.
Wow. Bold move.
Is there anything that you guys have on the agenda of things that you're going to get into this year?
You have a race in December,
early December. The first weekend of December.
Okay.
For me, and I'm going to have this conversation with my coaches, I'm very, very much enjoying the sport right now. Like, it is a good portion of my life, just whether it comes from a coaching aspect or my own training. I last year did not take an off season at all.
We know that.
Was fine. I felt great. Like, it was good going into the
season.
You
have this opportunity though, like perfect timing for like this holiday season of, I mean, it could work out really well.
Yeah.
4 weeks where you're like, oh, if I miss a day on the trainer, doesn't matter.
I'm not going to, once we hit January, since I have a big race block in April and May, so I might be racing almost 4 times between April and May. I'm planning on going in with like 2-3 months of really good work. I am not talented enough to take that was our joke with one of the other pros in the field. Is like, I know some of these top end pros will talk about they'll take off seasons, and they always, I think some of these guys say they're taking off seasons and then they'll stop posting on Strava, and I know they're lying because I know that they're like still maintaining a lot of volume and doing random stuff like that. But I am not talented enough to like take time out of the pool. Like, I am not a good enough swimmer to be like, I'm going to take 2 weeks out of the pool, come back, and I'll be fine. No,
I think you should look at, this is me coaching you. I think you should look at your, like the things that you find mentally difficult, which I know that's probably not a lot for you because you're weird that you can like sit on a trainer for 3 hours and hurt.
I like Zwift racing.
But like, honestly, Zwift racing would be a mental break, right? Because it's like, it's not like you're doing. Because
I hate LT1 and sweet spot work right now.
Okay, no sweet spot training for like the month of.
That's probably
the last half of December and the first half of January. It's like, go do Zwift races, and that would be enough of a break.
And I want to. I'm excited to cross country race.
Well, you actually kind of did that last year.
I did a
little Zwift racing block.
I didn't do as much as Josh did. Josh was Zwift racing.
He loves Zwift racing.
Oh my god, he was all over. He would crush those races too.
He has fun. I think he's going to do it again.
My problem with the Zwift races is like, if you want to actually win one of those races, you have to put out like a lifetime hour best on a weekly basis.
And the first minute needs to be max power.
Which is exactly how I don't race, but yeah.
So Zwift racing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zwift racing for your off season.
I'll be running the juniors a little Zwift ride.
Will you be hitting the weights at all?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Once a week, lifting very heavy.
What about
very heavy?
Once a week? You should do more than once. Yeah,
very light, Fred. Very light for me.
Whisper running? Any whisper running or anything like that?
Yeah, I think I'll probably be jumping in once the kids' cross country season is over. I told Dave I'd do
You could also find some sort of like Jingle Bell 5K, fun stuff like that to do.
We're going back to the resolution run. Me and Jake Stout. I need to reclaim the course record out there. Jake took it from me last year.
How about another bike fit?
I really like the bike fit I'm at right now.
So you think that's working for you? But
I think this is pretty good.
That's a good time though for people to start tweaking with that a little bit.
That is a good point.
I made a weird one where I kind of tweaked actually in like the middle of a race block, honestly, but it turned out great. I mean, I felt great the last 2 races.
How about tinkering with nutritional intake as well as new supplements?
Yep. Right now my goal is I'm training my stomach to be able to take about 100 grams of carbs per hour.
Have you been like subtly listening to someone like the Norwegians talk about like how they're cramming carbs in?
More than
There's
subtly.
something very interesting there that I don't know what they're.
I'm telling you that not only just everybody's listening to that. I don't know where some of this research is coming from, but it's almost like they're all trained like ultra runners now. They're like,
there's something weird going on.
Oh, I mean, who was it? Was it Backegard or Laidlow? Somebody was talking about like he's up to like 120 to 140 grams of carbs per hour in a full iron.
Do you think they're training their?
Oh yeah, I mean they're I realize that with myself is that if you want to do that, and Ed has to see, I mean we talk about this all the time in Ed's comments, is just like how much are you taking in per hour? And God, I wish I could. Ed gobbles that up just fine, and like we have a good communication. Some of my kids I coach are like they're like, I don't know, man. I just like I just feel kind of weird in my tummy whenever I do that. It was like, yeah, that's got to train your gut to do it. Like that's the goal is you have to be able to learn how to digest, or you're going to be running. You're always going to have a limit to your performance.
Right.
If you cannot process carbs, you are always going to have a limitation in performance because fat metabolism will only last so long. Yes, there is. Whenever people talk about, we have like this endless supply of fat metabolism. Yes, but your brain, your central nervous system is also really smart. It will not allow you to sustain ketoacidosis for a really long time unless you are a psycho. And the psychos are the ones we're seeing win like the ultras at like altitude, the like 100, 200 mile races, the 24-hour races where you get people that actually can sustain ketoacidosis for a while, but they are eating a ton during those races.
Yeah.
I mean, Ed's probably seen like, what is it? Like some of the, what's the woman's name? I just forgot who's Courtney DeWalter. Courtney DeWalter.
Doesn't she live in like Seattle?
I think so. I think she lives somewhere around there.
Or
But
maybe Vancouver.
She will like literally
Canada.
eat pizza. Like mid-run. She'll be like a mile 100, like running and eating pizza.
That's awesome.
It's like her gut
I
is
don't
full.
think that's
my spirit animal.
I just don't want anything sweet.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
That's the
Anything
biggest
but a gel.
limitation.
Anything but a gel.
I have at a certain point.
Yeah.
It just depends on the intensity and the duration. But at some point, anything sweet, I don't want to touch at all. Like I finished the marathon yesterday, and I forget what they were giving out at the
What'd you eat
finish
after?
line.
Yeah.
Well, we got Taco Bell on the way home because it's what
Nice.
my wife wanted, and happy wife, happy life.
Yes. But was your stomach happy?
My stomach was fine with it.
Nice.
But
See, that's actually a good sign.
I managed to take a bite of some peanut butter banana Bob's Red Mill bar that they had and almost spit it out in the car.
Right.
Yeah. No. I will wait until I get to Taco. I will rather wait 40 minutes for food.
Get this
than
trash away
eat
from me.
this
Let
at
me eat
all.
Taco Bell.
It was fine later in the day, but for the first few hours after the race, no, thank you.
I think that's even when we're talking about like repetitive insulin in the system, I do think at some point your central nervous system is like, it's like how honestly, how somebody develops type 2 diabetes is like your brain's like, we are not letting off any more insulin for a short bit, which means those really, really high sugary things are at some point going to make you sick. Like your body's going to reject them.
There's also a lot of gut issues when you're like, I'm taking in this sugary substance and like all the
fatigue.
water has to come from somewhere to process that.
This is why you have
gut.
to be. So there's a great chart that I downloaded recently where it's you have to be taking in 2 to 4 ounces of fluid per. Forget what amount of carbs it is, but whatever. Regardless, you have to take in 2 to 4 ounces. But if you get behind on that, it's actually you can't really catch up to that, so that your gut does not literally have enough motility to actually.
It's not a fun
process
rest of the day.
No, it's where you're on the toilet for a while. Yeah, it's not fun.
This conversation, as always,
right in the
off
crapper.
the rails.
Presented to you by Ghost Energy Drink.
Exactly.
Ed, what will you be doing this offseason? Anything new that you're going to add to your repertoire of like everything under the sun that you already do?
I think that's actually what's kept me doing this as long as I have, is just constantly varying it. So I'm sure this winter Jerry will co-opt me into some long snowshoeing trips.
Yeah,
which
sure.
is kind of
There you
fun.
go. Love that.
Just get out and maybe learn to ski again. I haven't done it since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'd love to get cross-country skis, but that's something I don't need to invest in at this point in time.
Cassie did that a little bit last year too, actually.
The snowshoes are fun enough, and there aren't that many groom trails around here. But there's always something different to try, and that's what's gotten me into gravel biking and mountain biking, and then back into running after a number of years off, and just constantly keeping it mixed is what keeps the fire going.
I think that's
the off season.
Yeah.
It's just it's like I don't have to do my primary sport or whatever it is, whatever goal I'm focused on. I can't sit still, so I'm going to be active and just find something that's new and interesting to try. And if it doesn't work out, that's great. There's a million other things under the sun.
Exactly.
How about you, Matt?
Well, I'm a little odd just because I'm still recovering from Achilles surgery, and so everything is it's not really like an off season. It's like a build. It will be a build towards like summer racing season. So I don't
Speaking
feel like
of, how are you feeling with that right now? And what is your trajectory for 2023?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. Iron Man. It's hard to say. I have no idea. We'll find out soon enough. I mean, I'm happy that I can get out and do some running, which is kind of like my favorite of the 3 sports. But I also am happy that I'm able to bike and swim a good bit. So I think I had a little bit of a setback because I had COVID, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's just a matter of like slow build, slow burn, nothing particularly hard, just put in time. And then hopefully this summer, it'll probably be some very low key, triathlon or 2 and some fun stuff. But nothing where I feel obligated to stress out about training.
Race at a certain pace or anything like that.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably like kind of let the cards fall where they fall for the entire summer. And then at that point, I'll start to think like, okay, do I want to try to put together a good half Ironman race somewhere next year? I think I'm a long ways away from training hard for something.
And then even looking at the next 10 years for you, you'll have a couple driver's license in the group at the home, which means that that schedule gets cleared up just barely once, Ethan's shucking everybody around.
All of those things help.
Yeah.
Would you consider not putting a triathlon and a running event on your calendar for 23 and maybe get into some bike racing? Maybe do some gravel or some road distance stuff or something that kind of like dovetails in
cyclocross. So I'm all in on cyclocross. No, I think
finished racing. I was like, that's
crashed
a couple times.
Crashed a couple times.
Handling isn't that great.
I think that, where I have the most fun is probably, even just going out to a triathlon and seeing all the people out there is so much fun. And so even if I don't do well, I'm still happy to be out there. And so I will probably continue to schedule myself some triathlon races.
Okay.
Bike racing, I wouldn't mind doing like a road cycling race for sure.
Some time trialing too. I mean, that's
time
something
trialing.
You're fantastic at that.
I love time trialing. I actually would love to do that. And, we'll have probably some races this winter that could be
still some of my best memories, Matt, were when I first moved here, going out to do the beaches ride with you, and you're on your Trek Speed Concept TT bike.
Great.
And we were just out there freaking hammering. And it was like just turning myself inside out just to stay on Matt's wheel because he was so stinking fast on that thing. So
I'm always on the lookout for like, okay, what, TT bike should I invest in? Because I do love time trialing. And I think having, we've talked about this before. It's like, there's a lot of reasons not to buy a new bike, but one subtle new reason to get a new bike is because you get so much more motivated to go out there and put the miles in. And
so true.
You get a new TT bike and you're going to go spend time at Vancouver Lake. Even though it's boring, it's the best place to kind of put your head down and work hard for time trialing. And so I would, I don't know when that will be, but at some point, definitely pick up a TT bike.
Plenty of 40K time trials out there that you could do good work at.
Yeah.
You still need to reclaim your KOM too on Lower River to whatever.
Is that yours now?
There to light. I think I have that one. Does Josh have that one? No, I have that one. The one from the light back to light that you came up with. Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah. Lot of good options out there.
Yeah.
Lance Hepler, are you still on the phone?
I am still here.
Oh, wow.
I finished my ride. I'm back at the van.
Okay. Is that why it's so quiet?
Yes, that's why it got quiet.
Lance Hepler has been a little bit injured. He's had some issues, things going on this year, yada, yada, yada. And I think he's starting to come back into form. Are we going to see the Hepler focus come into full swing?
Well, that's kind of my plan. I promised myself I would do whatever races that I was in town for, and I would not take them seriously. I'm racing for fun, right?
Yep.
Of course, when the gun goes off, I go full out, but my full out is not the same as it was last year. So once the cyclocross season ends, I will probably I'm going to Europe for like a month. That just sounded so pretentious. I can't believe that just came out of my mouth. But I'm going to Europe for a month, and I'm not taking a bike, so I will probably do some rides while I'm there. This is mostly for the month of November. And then when I come back, my hope is to really buckle down and try to be ready by spring so I can do some road racing. I can do team camp and stay with the team this year. And usually if I take that month off and without any intensity. I'll still ride, but I just won't do intensity and just ride for fun. And then when I come back, I can kind of step it up and be ready for the road season, and then do the gravel races that are in the spring as well. And then hopefully that will last, and I can, and then race my mountain bike and then race my cyclocross bike. So I'll take a month off and set myself up for a 10-month season, you know.
So he says she's not going to do any intensity in that one little block of time in there, right? And that's not doing sweet spot stuff coming from Trainer Road, but all of the KOMs on
Lance's
Strava.
idea of no intensity is like, that's a zone 2 ride with 2 by 3 minutes at my all-time effort.
Lance is going to tear the chain off some rental bike in Paris
on a zone 2 ride.
Well, what Lance is doing in Europe is actually
Some
pretty cool.
cruiser bike in Europe.
Lance, you and your wife have rented a Sprinter van over there. It's a little bit smaller than what you have, correct?
Oh,
Correct.
cool.
Yeah, we're flying in Amsterdam, and then I've rented a Sprinter van in Amsterdam, and we're going to take 10 days and travel around Belgium, the Netherlands, part of Germany, and Austria. I'm hoping to find a cyclocross race in the Netherlands while we're there, just to watch, because I won't have a bike with me. But then, so we're spending a couple weeks just traveling around Europe in the Sprinter van, and then we're headed to Greece and Turkey for a couple weeks with my sister and her husband. So that's
God, my life is so boring.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The Sprinter van comes with a few bikes, correct?
There are. It comes with 2 foldable bikes.
Uh-huh.
So I'm not sure what kind of watts I can put into those.
Guaranteed,
those foldable
100%.
bikes.
I will put all of the money on this bet that Lance will be out trying to tackle some freaking KOM in Europe on a foldable bike, just so he can say, "Look what I did."
Foldable bike into the cyclocross race.
Well, there you go.
Like,
That too.
I can jump in. Is this allowed?
Oh, that's brilliant. I should take the foldable bike to a cyclocross race.
You would make that. That would be like that pop up on Velo News the next day. It'd be like amateur takes foldable bike to brutal Belgium cyclocross race.
Does he or does he not break his collarbone on one of those foldable
That's the big
bikes?
question. Yeah.
It would be
Over under.
idiot American comes to Europe and takes the stupid bike on a race. That's what it is.
Awesome. All right. Anything else that you guys can throw out the listeners for things that they should consider for their off season going into the preseason as to what to do at that time of year? I know that we've talked about a bunch of stuff and gotten into the weeds on a few things, but is there anything that we missed or anything else that you wanted to touch on, Evan? Matt, Edward, Lance?
What you got? What do you got?
I kind of already threw some stuff. I mean, I think that's just a great time of year to start tinkering with things. I like that you mentioned like bike fit too and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's
bike
a good
fit.
idea.
That's a good time of
Nutrition
year.
is another good time to
if
nail
you're
down
having
your
some
nutrition.
issues with the supplements that you've been using throughout the course of the year, and you didn't want to change anything at the risk of like gastric issues, that's a good time to start tinkering with some new things. The strength training, I think that's a great time of year to do that, and not just do the traditional stuff. You should be doing that, but like look into stuff like yoga and Pilates and things of that nature.
Yes,
I think that's a good thing to be doing,
especially if you only ride bikes.
Yeah, and if you've had an injury, be real with yourself. If you've had issues throughout the course of the entire year, or if it's a chronic thing over the course of time, go seek professional help, because that's a good time of year where if that person's going to tell you, like, hey, we're going to back off and we're going to have you try a couple other things, go get that done right now. That's a good time to address those issues. Like for me, I've already started to lay some foundation for what's going on with my leg here, because it's something I've been dealing with now for, it's been 8 weeks, and I was dealing with a few twinges earlier in the year, but I think that was because when I look back, and Evan made a good point earlier, like be real with yourself, take a look at the schedule of what you did that particular year. And for me, it's like, all right, well, we went really hard on Tuesdays, we went really hard on Thursdays, and then the weekends that we would go out and do a team ride, went really hard there. And then I have to remind myself, I'm not 30 years old anymore. I'm not Evan Price.
And even if you are 30, I'll tell myself is the amount of intensity you guys were doing on the bike, I was probably doing 50% of that intensity through a week. So, I mean, just recalibrating some of those things, and then sit down and have an honest look at what your training program is going to look like. You really would benefit, and Evan's doing something that I think is pretty spectacular. It's probably something I should be doing as well if I want to be serious about trying to get back into bike racing, but have a coach work with you. Don't be so blind to your own needs and desires, and you thinking that you know yourself better than anybody.
work with somebody and get some objective opinions on what it is that you should be doing differently.
And frankly, if I may, one of the reasons I work with a coach like Evan is because it keeps me from doing too much.
Yes.
Which I am hardwired to do.
Yep.
I will want to go to the well. I will want to go farther or faster or harder than whatever I did the week before or the month before that. And having a structured program and somebody who can say, hey, it looks like you're overreaching, or we don't need to go this hard, that keeps me able to continue doing what I love.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about, is just not having to take enforced breaks, not being hurt, not doing other things that take me away from the things I enjoy.
Yeah. And I think that that's anybody who even, you know, and this is where, whenever I say can't afford it, I think that a lot of us endurance athletes can always make coaching work financially. You know, we travel for these races, we do all this. Look at it as, if you have been somebody who's had chronic injuries or had issues, take an honest look at your training and be like, okay, I need to find somebody who I trust to have a good back and forth conversation with. It does not mean, and I know me and Lance have gone back and forth, the devil's advocate on this, it does not mean download a Training Peaks program or this or that. Those, yes, there's a adaptive algorithm with that, but you need somebody you can actually talk to, because the bottom line is life is not a Training Peaks program. You're going to have kid stuff, life stuff, all of this, that you need another human being on the other side to be like, hey man, you've been sleeping 6 hours a night. We probably should not like go and hammer the next 2 weeks. Like, work and life has been hard. You need to back
6
off
hours
now.
is a good night of sleep for me.
Exactly. Yeah. This is where, you know, if I was going to Jake, I'd be like, Jake, you know, 3 intense days a week, we might pay the piper at some point here. And unfortunately, Jake did pay the piper, but
3 hard days a week and no sleep.
And no sleep is not a good,
Especially when they're in the evening, because that's been shown. Core body temperature goes up. It messes with your sleep. You don't recover well, and it just compounds. So.
Yeah, exactly.
You may or may not see some rides being posted up on the old Strava group page. Yeah. It will be starting. Oh God, this pains me to say it, but at 5:30 in the morning.
Oh, that sounds brutal.
I can work train.
I'm going to try switching up some
all the time there. Yeah, I know. I'm like once a week at that like 5:30 mark.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's good for me.
Well, there's a myriad of things going on. It's just like needing to be more present at home and just being more of a participating parent, if you will, because sometimes you get caught up in the work life, and when your whole life revolves around all things cycling, and then all of a sudden you're always gone in the evenings, that can kind of create a little bit of strain. So it's a good thing there. But the other thing is like just getting it done and out of the way and early in the morning. It's nice to have the rest of the day just to look forward to.
And your body will adapt to it over time.
It will.
It's like we both know it'll suck for like 3-4 weeks, and then it'll be good.
For me, it'll be a week.
Really?
Oh yeah, I'll acclimate quickly. I'm already up at that time. Yeah. I just get into my rhythm and routine, and that's like my downtime, the quiet time where I can go and sit there with my cup of coffee. Nobody's awake. Nobody's bothering me. I'm not getting text messages. I'm not getting DMs. I can go read stuff. I can go watch a YouTube video or two.
Sending Jake big emails at
5:30. Is that what we're supposed to call you?
Everything's silenced.
Right,
you
we're
guys.
on it now.
Apple's got this great silencing feature.
Broken,
but anyhow, getting back to that's going to be something I'm going to try tinkering with. That's going to be one of my changes this year, is to do that.
That's actually another good point. It's like you like changes in not just literally your volume and schedule, your actual time of training. If you need to make that life change, the off season's when you do that. So it's
it gets me on the same track as my wife, because she's always
she's always
early.
been a morning one.
She's always goes out to the track and she's running, or she's going out and running 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 miles.
Doing like 4:30 a.m. track stuff with the Mother Runners group.
She would get up at that time, and then she would meet them there at like 5:15,
5:30 on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
My God, that's tough. Well, I used to have to do that for master swimming, and then as soon as I was done with master swimming, I was like, I never want to raise my heart rate at 4:45 a.m. ever again.
Well, we could sit here and talk about this stuff all day long. Let's put a pin in that, and I'm sure that this will come up again. And let's jump into one last thing. Hepler, you want to go first since you're on the phone, and we always have the chance of losing you? Yeah, go ahead.
For this week's one last thing, I'm going to turn it over to my state legislature representative, Steve Waldrop. Steve Waldrop has been in the van with me for a couple days, and he just went on this ride with me. Steve, what was your report on the ride?
You know, if you've never ridden with Lance Hepler, your life is not complete. It's not complete. It has to be a thing you do because it's a mix between, you watch him struggle with like, I need to go get a Strava segment KOM. And well, I can't leave Steve 4 miles behind me on this ride that he's never done before. And it's really kind of fun to watch him have that moral dilemma. It's revealing to know that Lance actually has morals. I mean, that's
Lance's entire life.
That's a big one last thing.
There's a decision on should I chase this KOM is going to be Lance's book when he ends.
Shouldn't have chased that last KOM.
Shouldn't have chased that last KOM.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Matt?
Yeah, I always have a video to talk about, and this past weekend I posted the Kona predictions video, and I always ask this. I do the same video every year. It's pretty boring, but I give my predictions for podium and then I ask the audience or whoever watches the videos to post their own in the comment section, and then I give away stickers to people who do pretty well.
I like my podium so far.
You haven't commented on the video.
Oh, I commented on the Facebook one. You did copy and paste that
okay.
back, yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. But yeah, then you can win some stickers.
Yes.
Ooh. If your picks are good, which we're talking about Evan
They're
Price
trash.
here.
They're trash.
Have we found out yet if Apple killed Garmin?
Yes. Pretty sure Garmin doesn't
news.
exist anymore.
YouTube
Just out of
Matt
curiosity,
LeGrand
1 week
calls
later,
the
where are we at
death
with
of
that?
Garmin.
What kind of numbers? Oh, let's
I
look
think
that up.
the
real quick.
videos have that
up to
video
a million?
has slowed down.
Million views yet?
Not at a million.
I'm going to say
views.
450.
It is not 450. It's still probably 350,000 or something
Your
like
15
that.
minutes of fame is done, Matt. I'm sorry.
15 minutes of fame is over.
It's over.
Sweet.
I'll tell you guys in a minute.
Okay, I'll let Matt look that up. Evan, what you got?
Basically nothing special over this next 7 days, which is great because all I've done is like travel and all that stuff. So I'm just going to like train and just have fun. Yep. Maybe go on a like group road bike over the weekend. I don't know. Grab my road bike and ride with other people for once. That'll be fun. Yes.
Evan is done. That means Ed's going to jump in here and do his one last thing before I go. What you got there, buddy?
I am actually really excited to be in town for another few weeks. We've been traveling a lot and camping with y'all a bunch over the summer, so it felt like every other week we were somewhere that we're not. We were in Vegas, mountain biked there. That was fun. And so for like 4 weeks until the Grand Canyon, I'm just home and I'm super excited because I can actually get stuff done and not worry about packing up and unpacking. Yep, all those things are good. So
sweet. My one last thing, and I can talk about this because it's going to come out tomorrow, and we're recording this.
This is good.
On Monday, and this will come out on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Wahoo will be releasing their new Wahoo Roam, their new bike computer, which is kind of cool. And we've got a copy that was supposed to be an advanced copy. Damn it, Wahoo, you're late. And it'll be here tomorrow. So I'm excited to open that up and let Matt take first whack at that because Matt's a lot more prompt about getting videos out. But I'm excited
the price
to
tag on it.
I don't know what it is. I think it's going to be right around $400.
Gotcha.
It was $379 for the original, and it's been 3.5 years since they came out with the new one. So
it's not a big price increase, actually.
No, we've got. I've got one copy that'll be here either today or tomorrow, and then there's another, I think, 20 or 25 of them that are en route. So we'll have a bunch of those things in stock too. But I'm excited to play with that, and I want to put a video out on that, and hopefully Lance at some point in time gets back into town. He can play with it as well, and we can say some things about it and. I'll have a video out sometime in 2025. So
I know that's how I'm always thinking just a couple more years before I get this video out.
Yeah. So
I'm going to look up the price point for that while you sign off.
Did you get the advanced information on the pricing on that?
Yeah.
Okay. I probably did too, and I just haven't gone and looked it up, but I want to say it was $379. I think they went up to $3.
Before,
is it same before? I think it went up to $399. I don't know. Wahoo seems like they raised their prices on a lot of things. I don't know if it's inflation or.
It looks like their press release doesn't actually have. It doesn't have their pricing.
If it's only a $20 increase, I feel like that's not wild.
But I'm kind of interested to see some of the software updates that are coming out on that, and I'm curiously hoping that they're going to push some of those down to the Volt V2 with the Climb Pro based stuff that we might or may not see in that. So.
Climber, it's like Climb Segment. They have a new name for it. They can't call it Climb Pro because someone else already owns that.
Garmin,
and then they have new color screen, more memory, a little bit longer battery life, 17-hour battery life on that. So there's some good improvements for sure.
Gotcha. Anyway, hopefully that comes out to some applause and praise and a good unit for folks. So long time coming.
We shall see. Looks like kind of a small update and nothing like monumentous.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah. There's other things that have been more interesting to come out. But all right, I don't want to ramble on here too much more. That is enough from us for this week. We will be back next week with another one. And until then, bye for now.